Have you ever sworn that you remembered something so clearly, like a really vivid detail, maybe a specific event, only to find out later that, well, it never actually happened, or maybe just not the way you remember it? It's a seriously unsettling feeling, isn't it? But what if it's not just you? What if, like, loads of people remember it wrong the exact same way? What happens when a shared collective memory just completely clashes with verifiable reality? Well, today we're taking a deep dive into exactly that. It's this fascinating and honestly sometimes unnerving phenomenon known as the Mandela effect. Our mission here is to unpack what it is, maybe look at some of the most striking examples that came up in the sources shared with us, and then really dig into the psychological explanations behind why so many of us might share these collective false memories. It's really about understanding how our brains work, and how sometimes our own recollections can play some very convincing tricks on us.
Yeah, and what's truly unsettling here, I think, is that these aren't just like individual slip-ups. They seem to be these collective false realities, and they really make us question the very foundation of what we think of as truthful memory. The sheer pervasiveness, how widespread these shared misrememberings can be, it fundamentally challenges our understanding of memory itself.
Okay, so let's unpack this then. The term itself, Mandela effect, actually came about back in 2010. It was coined by a blogger, Fiona Broom, and she shared this experience she had, I think it was at a convention, where she basically discovered that lots of other people shared the exact same very specific memory she had about Nelson Mandela. And the memory was this, that Nelson Mandela had died in prison. Back in the 1980s, Fiona Broom recalled it so vividly. She remembered news clips like of his funeral, the mourning in South Africa, rioting in cities, even a heartfelt speech by his widow. So it wasn't just a vague idea for her or for the others. It was like a detailed emotional recollection.
Right. And the striking thing, of course, as most of us know, Nelson Mandela actually passed away much later in 2013, peacefully, after he'd served as president of South Africa. He certainly didn't die in prison in the 80s. So this widely held but deeply incorrect memory, well, that became the namesake for the whole phenomenon. It really highlights how a big group of people could all hold the same wrong belief with such conviction.
Exactly. But what makes this whole thing so captivating, I think, is just the sheer number of other examples our sources brought up. I mean, seriously, some of these might surprise you. Take, for instance, the kids' book series, The Berenstain Bears. So many people, so many vividly recall it as Bernstein Bears, spelled Bernstein, not Bernstein. It seems like such a small detail, right? But for some people, that memory is rock solid. It really makes you second guess your childhood reading.
It does, doesn't it?
And it's not just titles. Even like basic factual knowledge seems surprisingly malleable. For those of you listening in America, how many states does the country have? Seems simple, right? Basic civics. But unbelievably, many people will confidently tell you 51 or sometimes even 52 states when, the actual number is 50. It's one of those facts you learn really early on, yet somehow the misremembering is surprisingly common.
And even something as seemingly straightforward as spelling isn't immune. Think about the word dilemma. How do you spell it? Is it D-I-L-E-M-M-A? D-I-L-E-M-M-N-A with an N. The correct spelling, of course, is the double M, D-I-L-E-M-M-A. But a surprising number of people have this really strong, unwavering memory of that silent being in there. It just shows how even minor phonetic assumptions or something similar can lead to these widespread incorrect recollections.
Yeah, that one gets me too. I always have to double check it.
Yeah.
But maybe one of the most unsettling examples from the sources, one that genuinely gives you pause, is the collective memory around the Tank Man incident. The iconic footage from Tiananmen Square. Well, many people vividly, absolutely vividly, remember seeing a version of that video where the lone man standing in front of the tank, was actually crushed by it, run over. Some people even recall seeing blood on the street and learning about severe repercussions that supposedly followed. It's quite graphic in their memory.
And that really raises a crucial question, doesn't it? Why? Why do so many people have such a strong, disturbing, and really detailed memory of something that, well, according to the actual footage we have, it just didn't happen?
The man in the verified video is famously seen safe. He walks away. He even climbs on the tank briefly before being pulled away by others. The vividness of that false memory, though, often described using intense emotional language like disgusting or gore-filled. It speaks volumes about the power of these collective fabrications. So, okay, if it's not really a glitch in reality, if it's probably not parallel universes merging, how do our sources start to explain these widespread, confident, yet wrong memories? What's the psychological theory behind it all?
Well, the sources point us towards a concept that while maybe less dramatic than alternate timelines, is just as fascinating. And that concept is false memory.
Yeah, and the real key here is understanding what false memory actually is. It isn't just a mistake, and it's definitely not an intentional lie. That's crucial. It refers to a memory that's either distorted in some way or maybe even completely fabricated. But, and this is the important part, it's held with genuine conviction. The person truly believes it happened that way. There's absolutely no intent to deceive. It's a genuine but incorrect recollection. And that distinction, that's vital because it explains why people get so insistent about these memories, why they might argue passionately for their version of events. They believe it.
So they really feel true, even if they're not. Exactly. And this isn't just some abstract theory either. It's a phenomenon that psychologists can actually elicit pretty easily in a lab setting. For instance, researchers might give people a list of related words to study, like bed, rest, awake, tired, dream. Then later, they ask them to recall the words. And what often happens is that people will confidently remember seeing the word sleep on the list, even though sleep wasn't actually there. But because it's so strongly associated with all the other words, their brain essentially creates a false memory of seeing it. They genuinely remember something that didn't happen in the experiment. It's a powerful demonstration of how malleable our memory really is.
Wow. So it's not just these big famous examples like Mandela or the Tank Man. It's like a fundamental feature of how our brains operate day to day. Makes me wonder how many of my own vivid memories are just well-constructed fictions. Okay, so let's try and apply this idea, this false memory concept, to the examples we talked about earlier, using the insights from our sources. Let's go back to the Tank Man thing. For the people who remember him being crushed, the sources suggest maybe they watched the video while they were distracted, or maybe they just assumed a violent outcome was kind of the logical conclusion. Someone stands defiantly in front of the tank.
Right, the expectation shapes the memory.
Exactly. Or maybe memories of other violent things they'd seen online, or even just hearing people talk about how terrible or shocking that incident was, could have filled in the gaps or distorted the original memory over time. It's also possible, as the sources point out, that people might have confused this specific incident with other, maybe unrelated stories of individuals being killed by tanks in different situations.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And you can apply a similar logic to the Nelson Mandela memory. The sources suggest people might have just misunderstood news reports back when he was in prison for such a long time, maybe reports about his health or protests. There was also that weird instance in 2013 where, around the time Mandela actually did pass away, a lot of people mistakenly thought the actor Morgan Freeman had died. That could have led to some confusion, some wires getting crossed in the public consciousness.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah.
And it's even noted in the sources, apparently a significant number of people believed Stanley was dead long before he actually passed away, like before the huge recent wave of Marvel films made him so visible again. So these kinds of external inputs, these news reports, rumors, even celebrity lookalikes, they can subtly influence our recollections.
Okay, so that covers the more dramatic ones. What about things like the Berenstain Bears or the spelling of dilemma?
Well, for those, the explanations are often simpler, but they still tell us something fascinating about memory. With Berenstain, it could just be a case of simple mispronunciation, right? Especially with children's books. Kids, or even adults reading to kids, might not focus on the exact spelling, and stain versus stain sounds pretty similar.
Yeah, phonetically very close.
Or it's even possible there was some tiny, maybe unnoticeable print correction made way back when, and the Bernstein spelling just kind of stuck in people's minds from earlier copies or word of mouth before or after that hypothetical change. The same basic idea applies to dilemma with the N. It's a minor phonetic confusion, maybe influenced by words like autumn or column that our brains might just easily transpose when spelling.
And the U.S. states thing, why 51 or 52 instead of 50?
That one's interesting too. Our sources suggest a couple of possibilities. One idea is that our brains sometimes find perfectly round numbers, like 50, almost too perfect. A slightly off number, like 49, 51, or 52, might unconsciously seem more realistic or less like a placeholder. It sounds counterintuitive, but it's a known cognitive quirk.
Huh.
Weird. Another big factor is probably just the constant media discussion about a potential 51st state. Talk about Puerto Rico or Washington, D.C. statehood. If you see headlines or hear news reports mentioning the 51st state over and over, even if you're not paying close attention, your brain might just file away that number, 51, making it stick later on. Plus, it's possible younger people were just taught wrong at some point. Or maybe some older people are genuinely recalling the time before Hawaii became a state, which would make 49 correct for that specific period. Lots of factors.
So this really brings up a fundamental question then. If our memories aren't these perfect recordings, not like a video camera just playing back, then what are they? You mentioned cognitive psychologist Elizabeth Loftus earlier.
Yes, exactly. She's done groundbreaking work on this. And she explains that many people have this fundamental misconception about memory. We tend to think it works like a recording device, right? You record the info, store it, then play it back accurately when needed. But decades, literally decades, of research in psychology show pretty conclusively that this just isn't true. It's not how memory works.
So how does it work then, according to Loftus and others?
Well, she describes memory as being constructive, or maybe reconstructive. Think of it less like a video file and more like maybe a Wikipedia page.
A Wikipedia page, how so?
Well, you can go in and change a Wikipedia page, right?
Yeah.
But crucially, so can other people. Your memory is kind of like that. Every time you recall something, you're not just playing it back, you're actively rebuilding it. And new experiences you've had since, new information you've learned, even just your current mood or expectations, they can all subtly alter that memory as you reconstruct it. They can weave themselves into the fabric of the original recollection without you even realizing it. This constant rebuilding process, this Wikipedia page model, is really key to understanding why so many of us can share these vivid yet inaccurate Mandela effect memories. Our brains are actively rebuilding the past each time we access it.
That's actually a really powerful idea. But I imagine for someone who really trusts their memory, who feels like their recollections are solid, it must be kind of hard to accept that our brains are constantly, rewriting our own past, even in small ways. It certainly challenges our basic intuition about how our own minds work, doesn't it?
Absolutely it does. And maybe that's the value in understanding phenomena like the Mandela effect. It encourages us, perhaps, to consider just how much we rely on our memories as concrete, undeniable truth. Maybe it nudges us to question them a little bit more, or at least approach them with a deeper understanding of their reconstructive and sometimes fragile nature. It's a good reminder that what we think we remember isn't always precisely what was.
So, wrapping this up then, our deep dive today seems to reveal that while the Mandela effect feels like this totally bizarre glitch in reality, maybe even a hint of parallel universes colliding, it's actually a really fascinating and maybe even profound insight into the complex, often fluid nature of human memory. It's probably not about alternate dimensions, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on your view, but it is about the incredible and sometimes fallible way our brains process, store, and retrieve information. It's almost a testament to how creative and adaptive our minds are, even if that means they occasionally invent or embellish a few details along the way.
Well put. It really shifts the focus from external mystery to internal complexity.
So, what stands out to you from all this? Have you personally experienced a Mandela effect? Maybe a childhood memory that everyone else in your family recalls completely differently, or a historical detail you are absolutely certain of, only to find out you had it wrong. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? How many of our own deeply held memories, the ones that feel so real, might actually be just a little bit different from what truly happened? Something to think about. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the Mandela effect. We hope you found it as intriguing as we did. If you did, please remember to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. We'll see you on the next deep dive.